So we've been talking about the in-depth story in the Advertiser involving our colleague here, Kevin Foote from over at ESPN 1420. The last kind of portion of it came out over the weekend, and now the full story is out there. It's something because Kevin's important to us, and you almost can't think to put yourself in his shoes. Kevin Foote joins us this morning. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you for having me come in.
So, a year and a half or so ago, I guess, I don't even know how you and I got to talking about it. I don't know what sparked our conversation.
I don't remember either. I probably trusted you more because you went to Acadiana and I did, and you went to school with my brother. You knew my younger brother, Jason, so that probably had something to do with it. I don't know.
My senior trip, the first trip that we all got to go on, was because we were all going to nationals. Mm-hmm. Chip and Jason, they were debate partners, and we were going to nationals with Cheryl Gilmore, who was our coach. Yeah. Your mama went on that trip, too. Miss Jackie was on that trip. So our senior trip was to Chicago, right? It wasn't no beach.
Anyway, and did you know about any of this back then?
I knew vaguely. Yeah. Vaguely, mere shadows of it. And the reason I knew was because of what had happened with my sister in '88, which was, I guess, the year before my senior year. And I lost my sister under some suspicious circumstances. Mm-hmm. So, spending time with Jason, there are always weekend trips and speech and different things, and you get to talking like that. And I'd talk to, your mom briefly about my situation. Kevin, so we got to talking, and you said that you and Kristen Ackelson were going to be starting to do something to look into your dad's death 44 years after. You were how old? 7 at the time?
I was 7, yes.
What does a little boy at 7 years old think at that point?
Well, again, I don't know that, it's weird because we did so much stuff on this, and I kind of know what got into the paper and on the video, but right. Sometimes I confuse what, because we did. But one of the things we talked about when we interviewed is I just remember thinking, how am I going to – it happened on a Friday. And so I don't know for sure, but I think I went back to school that Monday. Or whenever I was going back to school, I remember thinking, how am I going to tell my friends that my dad was killed? I just remember all weekend thinking, how do you say that? You know, it's just so strange.
And so for people who may not have read the story, let's back up just a bit. Who was your dad? And what happened as far as the police report goes? Right.
My dad was Russell Foote. He was the area manager of the Red Cross. He was 28 years old. He had 3 kids. I was 7. My brother Marcus was 3. Jason was 1. And, of course, one of the shames of this is they don't really have any memories of him. I have memories of him because I was older. And he was on his way. I don't know that I don't think anybody knows the exact time of death, but he was on his way to work. It was a Friday morning. They guess around 8:30, but somewhere in that, on his way to work. We lived out. I remember the address was Route 1, Box 157D, which is West Congress Extension now, going towards Dusson. Right. So he just passed where Katie and Fumart is by Acadiana High, going to work. They found his car. It was in the middle of the road. Now, I understand Congress back then was. It was pretty country. It was a 2-lane road.
Yeah.
And now, it wasn't out in the middle of nowhere, but it wasn't like, in the middle of the city. But it was a 2-lane road. His car was found in the middle of the road. I mean, in the middle of the road, and it was stopped in park, and part of the window was rolled down. And so right away, everyone said he knew the person that did
Who approached his window.
Yes.
Yeah. So from what you know at this point, and obviously the investigation hopefully will go on now. From what you know, they surmise that it was someone that he knew. It was 2 gunshot wounds to his head.
Yeah, 3 shots were fired. 1 grazed his chin and hit the door, and the other 2 did not.
There was only one quote-unquote witness, if you will, I guess, as far as actually seeing someone near the car. Is that correct?
Right. There was a witness, an older gentleman who obviously has long since passed, and he saw a car and identified the car behind the
Your dad's car,
station wagon.
Station wagon. Mm-hmm.
And identified as a young man. Now, there's people who have questioned that, obviously, which is maybe partially why I didn't get through the grand jury. I don't know all the reasons why I didn't get through the grand jury, but there were some people that questioned whether it was that or not. But yeah, he did see. Now, I guess we don't know exactly all the things behind that car, but yeah, he did identify a vehicle behind the car. And get this, I talked to someone who has since just recently talked to someone who was reading the story over the weekend,
which is what everyone hoped for.
Remember driving by the car on that day. I was just like,
now, is there additional information?
No,
is that person,
no,
nothing new, nothing
but
additional.
It's just
if
eerie that you talk
to
someone who to someone who actually saw the vehicle that day and remembers it.
Okay, tell us the
That's
day.
That's just crazy.
This is about 8:30 in the morning on a Friday.
Friday, May 17th.
May 17th.
May 17th, 1974. And get this on Thursday, which was May 17th, my son Russell, which is named after my dad, was in the second grade. The day that the story came out.
No kidding.
And then the day that it happened, it was May 17th, my second grade year.
Wow.
The day that it actually happened.
Wow.
Just kind of weird.
That is weird.
All right, we're going to take a quick break.
Yes.
We're going to come back. We have Kevin with us for the hour. And, if you're riding in your car right now and you think you saw something, I mean, there are so many people around here that listen to our station and to the rest of the Town Square stations. If you have come across people who realized that they drove past it, like you were just saying, someone out there might know something.
Somebody said something similar to this. Even if you think it's very minimal, who just sent? What do they do?
I would email
Kevin?
me or call me at the paper. Yeah,
okay,
I would do that.
All right,
kfoote@theadvertiser.com.
kfoote@theadvertiser.com.
And it's
44
Foot with
years.
an E.
Foot with an E, yes.
This chilling cold case officially reopened. We're back with more with Kevin Foote after this. 27 now at News Talk 96.5 KPEL. We're going to get up to 92 degrees today. 73 right now here at the KPEL studios. So we're telling you this story. Kevin Foote, our colleague, joins us in the studio now. 28-year-old Russell Foote killed. Not much is known about it. Only one eyewitness. Some odd details. But there were some things that led up to this. There's a part in this story, and I'll read just a little bit. In the weeks before his death, Russell's demeanor had begun to change. He was on edge, said Robert Thibodeau, who was Russell's brother-in-law. He says, you can feel something was wrong. He kept saying there was something wrong with the office, didn't tell me what it was, and he said, I'm getting some information and you'll know about it when it comes out. So all this kind of plays into, now this happens, now your dad is no longer with you and your brothers and your mom, and little pieces of information come out like this. What led up to this, even if it's unrelated, some different things kind of odd happening.
Very suspicious.
Yes, well, there had been money missing for
months.
The books.
Yeah,
the books just weren't, and he kept trying to figure it out and kept trying to figure it out. And as it says in the story, well, one thing, there was a fire a month before
your dad's
my
murder.
dad was killed, and I guess the thought process is maybe trying to burn evidence, because then afterwards was there was a job termination, and then the lady from Guaranty Bank that was in the story,
Ms.
and
Aver.
on one of the videos, she noticed the irregularities, gave them to Dad, and then 2 days later he's murdered. So there's fire, there's termination.
There were ledgers found on the car seat,
embezzlement, and then as far as the embezzlement case, there was a guilty plea and conviction, so that's not kind of like up for debate. That actually happened. So
yeah, we have
was
court
all
records for
part
that.
of it. Yeah, and both went to the grand jury, but only the embezzlement got through the grand jury. The murder part did not.
Now, the first fire at the American Red Cross office was in a trash can, right? And then the second fire
was bigger.
It destroyed everything.
Well,
pretty much, right?
It was. I mean, it. It didn't burn the building down or anything, but it was. They couldn't.
Gone.
Yeah, they couldn't. They couldn't be. They had to move. They moved to, and I remember this as a kid. They moved to the Presbyterian Church across from the Domino's on campus, and that was kind of the makeshift office for a while. And it just, that would, that on the morning that it happened, like that's where the interviews were done. You know?
Right now there's a board of directors for the Acadiana Red Cross, right? So I'm sure in 1974 there must have been a board of directors.
Oh yes.
I mean, have y'all interviewed these people? Have police interviewed these people?
I don't know how much. I don't know if the police. Robert Leon Packer was one of them. Richard Chapuis was one of them. Al Seymour was one of them. And some people who are still in politics in the area or around there, or some people that are still very well known people. So yeah, it's there were people on the Red Cross board, and I think, I don't know that if I couldn't tell you if the cops. The sheriff's department has talked to them. Well, they talked to them back then for sure.
Sure, but not
recently.
I
don't know that.
So let me ask you this too. There were a lot of student volunteers at the article that you guys wrote. Right.
There were 4 student volunteers.
Okay.
Who kind of worked closely with Dad, and ironically, I mean, one of them was Bruce Brown, which is the reason why I got the job at the newspaper my junior year in high school as a part-timer, because Mom knew Bruce because he worked with the Red Cross. One of them was Richard Hinkey, whose former wife was Deanne, and a lot of people might know.
Board,
yeah,
right. And he's an attorney, right?
No, he works. He has a security system.
Okay.
And he was quoted in the story, and I've spoken with him several times. One of them was Keith Tronhon, whose wife Margaret ran the United Way. I don't know.
I think she still does as executive director.
The United Way. And one of them was a lady named Jean Tronhon, who I've spoken to. She doesn't live in the area anymore. But those were the 4, I don't understand the program, but it was like college students who were volunteering. It was part of their school and all that. So they interviewed them a lot, and they obviously all knew Gwen.
So tell us, who is Gwen? She was what?
Gwen was the secretary, and she was the prime suspect, but also
a prime suspect in the embezzlement.
In the embezzlement,
right.
Yeah. Well, she pleaded guilty to embezzlement.
She did plead guilty to embezzlement.
And she's identified in the story, and yes, and so I mean, we don't know beyond that for sure, but that was
because she had gone on too. She has had several more jobs. But also
several
more
court
convictions.
Cases, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, so this woman has spent time in prison.
She has been in prison, yes.
For a 12-year sentence
from 89 to 2001, she was in prison for subsequent embezzlement charges.
Now, tell me about what I read in the article said that there were statements that came from the bank. Miss Hebert had given the statements to your father.
Yes.
Okay, and they did not match statements that allegedly came from Gwen.
Correct.
At the office.
Yes.
Those 2 statements did not match. Your dad says there is something strange going on here. Why would they not match?
Right.
And he, as you had referenced before, he had said several times that something's off with the books. He had said that several times to several people, according to some of these articles that have been written.
Yeah, and the really eerie part, when I first started interviewing people, what I did was, when we first decided we were going to do that, I just started thinking of all the people who I remembered who knew Mom and Dad or who was part of the Red Cross or knew anything. So I just started calling them. And one of the people that came up was a man named Don Ludowich. I'm not sure. He was quoted in the story. And he said, I remember talking to your dad, and he told me one day, he said he was a local safety expert, so they were always in communication. He said he walked into his office, and Dad told him one day, I think someone's trying to burn the building down. I keep walking in, and there's they have little fires in the trash cans and stuff. And then he said another day he walks in, and he said, Don, I think someone's trying to kill me. And
so he actually said
to Don, said that before he was killed.
I think someone's trying to kill me.
Yes, and so when imagine my heart. I mean, it was interviews like that. I'm hearing this, and it's just
in hindsight, you think you could do something. You think you could have done something,
right?
If the right person knew. Maybe there could be protection.
Maybe there were other people that knew more and maybe never said anything because they were too fearful.
And that's what I'm hoping.
Because there were a lot of movers and shakers that were a part of the American Red Cross in that day. Is that correct?
Well, and in constant communication with the American Red Cross.
And in constant, because the constant communication had to go on between government and the American Red Cross when it came to any kind of local emergency.
Right. And, they had... In 73, there was Hurricane Corman, so there were some, and there was always tornadoes and fires and things like that that went along with it. So, yeah, obviously, Dad knew something was up, but he found out about as we talked about in the article, 2 days prior to his murder is when they said, okay, now we kind of
now we know the paperwork
where the why the books weren't adding up.
All right, we're going to take another quick break. We're going to be back with more with Kevin Foote. You know his name. You've read his columns in the Advertiser, and also hear him on ESPN 1420 here in the Town Square media world of radio here. Kevin's joined us to talk about this case, which had been considered a cold case for a long time. It's officially been reopened, and we're going to talk about kind of where we are now. What does reopened mean? What new information is out there?
And
do we know more?
44 years, like you said. Do we know more? And if you did know something at that time and you were too afraid to speak, it is 2018, and you cannot imagine what this man has gone through, what his brothers have gone through, and what Jackie went through. Kevin's mother passed away a couple of years ago in 2015.
2015, correct.
And what she was an amazing woman, because she was a single mother, and she was just amazing. And then, goes on, has another child, continues her life. But you have to be extremely, extremely powerful to continue on after something so devastating happens. But I do want to start with your mother when we return.
Yes.
So coming up in 60 seconds, we'll find out more about Jackie. Who was Jackie Foote?
All right, 7:36 now at News Talk 96.5 KPEL. 7:39 at News Talk 96.5 KPEL. Plenty more online. KPEL965.com. Some of the weekend stories there. Also on the app, free in the App Store and Google Play. We continue our interview with Kevin Foote, ESPN 1420 and sports editor at the Daily Advertiser. I want to talk a little about your mom, as Bernie kind of alluded to. At the end of the day, she still raised her children, moved on with life, but never really forgot about kind of the questions that she still had about what happened. Unfortunately, you lost her a couple of years ago, back in 2015. How was the rest of your life after this?
The thing with my mom was, remember, she was 26 years old. Her birthday is October the 1st, so she is quite about half a year away from turning 27. She had a 7-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a 1-year-old. She had just learned how to drive, and boom, one day, she gets cops go to her door on a Friday morning and says, your husband's dead.
Your husband's dead. And that Thursday night, she'd been to a Pokino party.
Yes.
And the secretary of the Red Cross, Gwen, the woman we talked about with the embezzlement, was also at that party.
Absolutely. And so it was, I can only imagine now, look, I knew some things, obviously I was 7.
Right.
But
and we're
now
just
when I look
about
back
facts
at
that
it,
we know. We're not saying anything about anyone. We're just asking questions.
Right.
Go ahead.
So as you look, as I read the case and investigate and look back, I can just imagine, and I remember one of the things I said in one of the video was just how the funeral
was devastating.
How it was. And the reason, it was devastating because of what happened, but I think part of it also was, I didn't realize until I looked at all this, my dad was killed on a Friday morning. The wake was that night. The funeral was the next day.
Oh, my God.
It was just, I remember all those events, but I didn't remember, I would not have known, I couldn't have told you a year, 2 years ago, but the funeral was the next day. And I guess it's because probably if it happened on a Tuesday, it would have been the Saturday. If it happened on a Wednesday, it would have been the Saturday. Even though it happened on the Friday, the funeral was the Saturday.
How does a 26-year-old mother get money for a funeral? Do you know the answer to that question?
My dad had good insurance because I know my mom always told us, whatever you do, make sure you have good insurance. Because it basically made life possible after that, for us. And but my mom never, when she died, I gave me and my 3 brothers kind of gave the eulogy. And one of the things I said, look, I'm sure over the time of my mom that she offended probably every single one of y'all at some point, because she was just, her entire energy and being at that point just switched to us. And whatever she thought was best for us, that's what she was going to do and say. And so, she became very strong-willed, and that probably, she got married twice after that, and Neither one worked, and she spent her whole life asking why and why and why. But one of the things that has come up more than once by several different groups of people is, why are you bringing this up now?
Yeah. Because if they don't know it, it leaves a hole in the middle of your soul.
Yes.
When someone is taken from you and you don't know why.
Yes. Yes. But, like, first of all, I, 10 years into it, 20 years into it, the conversations that we had, my mom always suspected that there was some sort of cover-up. It's like, why has this not been solved? Why has this not been solved? There's a lot of dominoes here.
Yeah,
why has this not been solved?
How could the murder of the Red Cross director in 1974...
in broad daylight in the middle of a street. Yes.
The man
not
is
be
shot
solved.
in the head twice.
Right. And so she always thought there was a cover-up. So 10 years into it, 20 years into it, we would have conversations. Okay, she was like, I want answers. I want answers. So I'm talking about and the questions that we would ask is, well,
are you prepared for the answers?
Well,
number one?
There was some of that, but the biggest thing was the people who, if there was a cover-up, are they still in power?
And will they kill you?
Do they still have something to lose? See, when I was a kid, I can remember being at home, having a babysitter at the house at night, and cars driving around our house to scare us. I remember seeing the doorknob move when I was in the... So there were things done. There were things done to us to give us messages like, you better be careful, kind of. Now, again, do we know who those people were? No. And do I know exactly what they were doing? No. But there were things done. We would be...
Were you out in the country?
Well, yeah, but it's, if you're heading the other way on Congress, have you ever been down in that direction?
Sure.
And you go, there's a curve,
in the
and
roadway.
Then there's another curve.
Yes.
When you come by that second curve, we were the third house on the left, before you get to... what would be Judy's in that area. So
you had a couple of neighbors.
Yes, we had people
many.
across the street. The Clark family, it was unbelievable all the things they did for us, and I've been able to talk to one or two of them. But yeah, that night, in fact, the girl's house, they had two daughters, and the family's house that we went to that night, I was just telling you about because we were scared to death. We went to she actually spoke to the oldest daughter this week about this thing because after she read it. So that was cool. But no, it was crazy. If you could picture the scene, me and my two brothers and the babysitter, and we're in the corner of my mom. We went into my mom's room and we're scared to death in the corner hiding. And I can't even believe I did this because I don't even know if I do this today. I was the one that got up, went into the kitchen and started looking out the window, kind of scared, like, who is this? What are they doing?
How many times do you think that happened, that there was a car outside?
Well, a couple times. And the other thing is did
the doorknob move more than once?
I saw the doorknob move. I still remember seeing that and being scared.
Somebody was trying the doorknob.
Yeah. So the point I'm getting across is there was always a thought that we were in danger because whoever it was, would they be willing to kill? Yes. The answer is yes, because they already had.
Well, and did they wonder, Kevin, whether or not your mother knew something, and if she did, how much did she know? Would your father have told her those things? From the things that I have read, I would be under the impression that he would not have told your mother that because she, was alone during the day with her children. And he wouldn't have wanted to worry her.
Yeah, I don't know all what he told her. We know some because it was her. I've read her interviews.
Yes.
The day of the murder.
With the detectives.
Yeah. But the point of it all is, yes, do I regret not doing this earlier? But to end that story is what happened was, in the last few years before my mom died, she would. In fact, there's a line in there. She would get like, we need to do something. We need to find answers. And she says, man, I've got two lawyers and a newspaper man. We seem like we can get some answers here. And yet, once you get to a certain point, it's like, how do you begin a project that big? And so what it took is someone or something to spur it on. 2 Novembers ago, there was a cold case in Lake Charles involving a man named Felix Vale.
Yes.
And a guy that's part of the Gannett chain, worked for the Jackson Clarion Ledger, wrote a big, we did, a big thing talking about this man who killed 2 of his ex-wives. And somewhere along the line,
the first wife allegedly died in a drowning, right? So that was the first wife. The other two he had killed. They go into all this investigative reporting, and Felix Vale is in jail now, right?
And our photographer was there, part of covering the trial. And so and my mom and Kristen Askelson, who's my boss, she had gone to my mom's funeral the previous year and saw the pictures and heard some of the stories, and that was in her mind. And then she's kind of like me, just constantly watching these forensic shows and crime. And she would listen to podcasts. I've never really done. There are podcasts out there about cold cases, and then this Felix Vale case, and she's like, Why can't we try to do what they did with your dad's case? And all it took was, like I said, 1 or 2 phone calls. And I was like, there's just no going back. I mean, there was just no going back. And
I am so proud of you. I really am. And I'll continue to say it. And I hope that someone is listening right now, or maybe more than someone. Kevin and his brothers deserve to know what happened to their father and who was responsible for murdering him execution style. They shot the man in the head. It was someone he obviously knew, and that's not my words, what the investigators surmised, because he had rolled down the window a bit with whoever had flagged him over in the middle of West Congress Street while the man is on his way to work. So he deserves to know, and if you know anything, if you think you might know something, or if something just is triggered in your mind, now is the time. It doesn't matter. It's 44 years later. There's nothing left to be frightened of, and if you still are, do the right thing.
Or if you know someone that was part of the that you might have talked to casually about it, but maybe you can talk a little bit more than casually about it. Yes,
and maybe you suspected someone, and you know now that you should have come forward all these years. It doesn't matter anymore. You need to do this for him and his brothers. They deserve it.
We're going to come back to finish up with Kevin Foote after this quick break. Again, the story in The Advertiser and on theadvertiser.com. Kevin Foote will join us to wrap this up after this. All right, so it's 7:52, so we are now in present time. We know 28-year-old Russell Foote, the father of Kevin Foote from The Advertiser and from ESPN 1420, died in his car on Route 1, which is now West Congress Street, going out towards the Dusant area. And, you guys have dealt with it for over 40 years, 44 years to be exact. Your mom's not here. And this story just kind of came up. You made a couple calls and you said you really just couldn't turn back. What do you hope you accomplish at the end of this? Obviously, I think the easy answer is to know exactly what happened. But do you want someone to be brought to justice if that person's still alive?
Yes, but the main thing that, I think I can live if we first of all, I know way more about it than I ever knew, which is about the surround and kind of now, do I know all the answers? No, I don't. That's why we're doing this. And hoping that we can get more information. But I want to swing. In other words, back in 1974, the thought process was Nathan Stansberry, the district attorney then,
brought
decided,
it to a grand jury, right?
They brought it. Carlo Lissi, as the story as the newspaper articles then said, he asked for a probe. They went to the grand jury. The embezzlement got past the grand jury. The murder charge did not, and so they kept waiting to get this gun and wait to get the gun or some sort of physical evidence, and then it just kind of went off into a sea of forgetfulness for 4 decades. And so when we brought it up to the sheriffs, they had no idea about it. In other words, it wasn't part of their stack of cold cases they had never solved. It had been lost. It was, it was not on anyone's consciousness other than us and the people that knew Dad and Mom that,
Right.
And because I've talked to several people, and it was like, and even Miss Abear, who we talked about, she was like, we just never heard from it again. It's just like, which also had led to Mom to wonder, was there a cover-up? So she always had certain people she suspected but never knew could be part of this, quote, cover-up. And and again, when you hear about conspiracies, it could be massive or it could just be one person.
Yeah.
I mean,
you don't know.
Yeah, I have no idea. So what I want at the end of this is that we swing And look, if we swing and miss at the end of this, I know that there are people, whether it's in law enforcement, that don't like to swing and miss, and I understand there's some. I didn't know about any of this, but I've been told that there's certain people, certain district attorneys or certain office that are more aggressive, and others aren't. But whatever. I just want. I don't want this to. Okay, we're just going to forget about this again. We don't have 40 more years. We don't have 10 more years, maybe. I don't know how long we have, but I want to swing. And if we swing and miss, it will be crushing in a way, but at least we will have tried. And I just want someone to try really hard. I mean, really try to do something and end this and get answers as well.
Yeah, because you know what people do, and what happened in that situation is the fear that came over all of you. And that's why you didn't try then, and that's why your mother never pushed, I'm sure, because she thought, if I do I die? Do I die or they take my children?
She couldn't take, it was rough enough on her already, but if something would have happened to one of us, and it would have been really,
it would have. And as it was, the poor woman was out of her mind. It seemed like for a short time.
And while a lot of people have questioned that, again, in the back, the other point is it's not really our responsibility to solve the crime.
That's right. You're absolutely right. You did.
And so,
as a family,
I regret not doing things earlier. And again, every time the first few phone calls that I made back in, last January and February, I literally would be like, go to call mom and tell her afterwards. And then you realize you can't.
That's
can't
too late.
Yeah.
Life is too short, and you should have been able to get some answers. So the secretary, the person that was the secretary at the time, the embezzlement case did go forward. That was the Lafayette case or whatever. But the woman ended up serving, 5 years of probation initially, or she was
which
sentenced
is a whole
to 5
different
years?
deal. What happened was they were having a sentencing hearing. She pleaded guilty to this, and then right after she got released from the Red Cross, she went to work for an oil man named W.G. Darcy, and $4,000 was stole from there, and so they had concurrent embezzlement cases.
That ran,
Okay, she pleaded guilty. Okay. They were having a sentencing hearing. They said, well, the sentencing hearing is going to be transferred to Abbeville a month from now. Everyone kind of, what's going on? Well, they get to Abbeville a month later. They had the sentencing hearing. Her attorney stands up and says, Judge, can I talk to you in chambers? They come out 30 minutes later, and her supposed prison time was reduced to 5 years probation, which she served unsatisfactorily, and then released afterwards.
Now
who was her attorney?
Joe Corey was her attorney.
You've tracked down where she lives now, where you think she lives. You haven't had answers to phone calls or to knocks on the door.
Well, the reason why we did that was not to question her like a police officer.
Anything?
Well, it wasn't even that. Our purpose for trying to contact her was to say, look, we're doing this cold case story on Russell Foote. You're going to be mentioning it. Do you want to speak?
Yeah,
from a journalistic standpoint, we felt like we had to try to say, look, if you want to say something, because your name will be mentioned in this story, can you say, will you say something? But we never could.
Okay, and I want to go back and make sure I understand what you just said a minute ago. So the case got moved from Lafayette,
the sentencing part, to Abbeville.
And you don't have an answer for that as to why.
I actually talked to a person who was like a district attorney in Abbeville, why would this happen?
Yeah.
And he couldn't. He said, I said, is this normal? And he said, no.
Okay.
And he said, the only way I could think that could happen is if there was some high profile case and they didn't want to taint the jury, but you would move it further than Abbeville, theoretically.
You would think so.
Yeah.
And
if that was the case, which was not the case. And so I don't know all what happened. I obviously don't know what was said in chambers.
Right.
But
okay,
yeah,
wait.
She got get this. She got 30 days for the embezzlement.
Of time served, or
she got 30 days. It was in November, and they told her that she could serve it after the New Year so she could spend time with her family for Christmas.
You have got to be kidding me.
I vividly remember my mom being very upset about that.
I would imagine so. Now go back to the part where you said she was going to be sentenced to what?
No, I don't know how much she was going to be. That the expectation the expectation was that she was going to get prison time, and she ended up getting 5 years probation.
And what happened in the interim?
She didn't meet any of that was put in the story.
But somebody went in and talked to who?
During the sentencing trial.
During the sentencing trial.
Her attorney stood up, asked for a meeting in chambers. They came out a half hour.
With the judge
in chambers. The judge was Carol Spell. And asked for a meeting with the judge. And when they came out, it was a 5-year suspended sentence, which she served unsatisfactorily. She did not get. That was in the story as well.
Okay.
She didn't show up on time for her meetings. She didn't get the psychiatric treatment she refused that she was supposed to get, and then she was released anyway from the probation.
From the probation.
All of that leads to my mom's fears.
Wow.
All those years.
Kevin Foote, what a story. We hope that as a reporter, you never want to become part of the story. Obviously, when we know your purpose is to find answers for her, for you guys to know what happened.
Anything you want to add before that we need to think about to encourage people?
A million things, but it's like, where do you go? Again, the main thing that I want is that there are a lot of people whose names, and they may not have anything to do with any of it.
But they may just remember
they're part
something.
of it, and they knew people who were part of it. So if you know people who were part of it, please talk to them and ask questions. And if you are one of these people who were directly or indirectly part of it, or knew people who were part of it, please let me know.
And were these people involved, like the embezzlement case, was she a high-profile person? You don't know?
Not really, no.
Okay.
I mean, she was...
So it's not like...
I don't know that she was a high-profile person, no.
Right, okay.
I don't think she was.
So, and I mean, either way, it has been 44 years.
No.
But if you remember something about any of it...
Yes. Please.
Yeah. Now, and you want them to what?
Yeah, give your email address.
Email me, kfoote at The Advertiser, KFOOTE at theadvertiser.com, or give me a call at the paper.
Okay, and we're going to put it up on our website. We have already been sharing what you guys wrote.
Or go to the sheriff's department.
Yeah, walk into the sheriff's department and say, I know something about the Foote murder, or I might know something about the Foote murder. And we're going to put your audio up on the story, and hopefully something jiggles loose.
Yes, that would be tremendous.
Kevin Foote, thanks for coming in and spending some time with us this morning.
Thank you.
Hate that you have gone through this, but it's been too long. Let's find the person responsible. 8:02, Bernie has news, weather, and traffic coming up.